Standability in corn every year seems to be a little bit of an issue, but it was more of an issue this year because there was a giant wind that came through at the end of the season, knocking over even what appeared to be nice standing corn. What do you do about something like that? How do you prevent something like that from happening? Because it seemed like it was just about every hybrid out there.
Well, you don't fix it in the fall, that's for sure, because there's no fix to it. Once you get to fall, you just have to get things out of the field. That's your only hope. So what you have to do is you set yourself up for success in the spring. And I've got a little story that will illustrate how. 5 years ago, I was on the farm of the world record corn producer, the late Francis Childs. And Francis had some hybrids that looked fantastic out in the field, but the signs at the end of the field confused me because the hybrids that he had planted were the same ones that driving to his farm all the way across Iowa, I saw laying over in the fields. And I said, "What's going on, Francis? This cannot be the same hybrid that I saw falling down all the way across Iowa." And he said, "Yeah, I'm planting the same hybrids everybody else is. The difference is fertility." And when you look at the stalks and the stalk diameter, what you would see when you had good fertility in a field, I mean really good fertility, is the stalks were much, much thicker. And that was a big difference for Francis. The other thing that happened when you had really good fertility is when the roots are spreading out in the soil, they put on a lot of root hairs because there are a lot of nutrients available. If you have poor fertility ground, as is really evident when you get down into the subsoil layers of your soil, you have roots down there, but they never really expand, and you don't see many root hairs on them because there isn't enough fertility. So you need to have good fertility in your ground to have better, more diverse roots that will explore more of your soil, but also so you have a little thicker diameter stalk that can stand up even in some tough winds.
Well, that's a nice story, Darren, but I want to get specific into what a farmer should really do, because the thing with Francis Childs is he was raising 500 bushel corn. You know what, on our farm, our top yield won't even get 250. Well, hopefully it'll be 250, but anyway, the point is we're only looking to do half the stuff, and with Francis Childs, you know, it just looks like a lot different situation. That's the biggest thing farmers tell me. So what should we do specifically for nutrients?
Well, one of the biggest ones that is really getting left out of the program is potassium. This summer we did what we call a micro challenge. We were looking at micronutrients on a number of different farms through plant tissue analysis in cornfields. And we saw, yes, there's a definite need for more micronutrients and better micronutrient fertilization. There's no question about it. But the thing that really stood out to me as well was the number of fields that were short in potassium. There were over 60% of the fields across Minnesota and Iowa that we sampled this summer that were low to deficient in potassium. And this really goes right back to the types of stalks that we have, the amount of stalk rot that's getting into the plant when plants aren't healthy, and also just the diameter and thickness and strength of those stalks. If you're short in potassium, you are not going to have a good stalk.
We like doing plant tissue analysis in addition to doing soil sampling, because soil sampling only tells you what's in the ground. Tissue analysis tells you what actually got into the plant, and this is one of the biggest issues we've seen on farms across the Midwest, and I want to tell you why I think that is. Okay, if you look at 200 bushel corn, just the grain alone is going to remove about 76 pounds of phosphorus and 60 pounds of potassium. Well, that's quite a bit. Then you look at soybeans, that's going to remove about 48 pounds of phosphorus and 84 pounds of potassium, actual K, if you have 60 bushel beans. And a lot of people in Minnesota and Iowa at least, and even on our farm, we've been averaging close to 200 bushel corn, 60 bushel beans. So in a 2-year cycle, what we're saying here is if you leave the stalks, you leave all the residue out here, just like we're in this cornfield here that's harvested, all the residue stays out, so we didn't chop the stalks or remove them, take silage, anything like that. In a 2-year cycle, corn, soybeans, 200 bushel corn, 60 bushel beans, we're going to take roughly 150 pounds of actual K, which means you've got to fertilize with about 250 pounds of potash every 2 years just to stay even, not even get ahead. And so many people are not doing that, and what it comes back to is the stalks just end up thinner, you don't have as good a standability, and here's the other factor. When you plant a little higher populations, you end up with a little thinner stalk as well.
That is a key, and back to Francis Childs again, at that particular year, he was planting around 50,000 population and still had good stalks. So he had tremendous fertility out there, even in that high population, high plant density, thin stalk situation. He didn't have that issue. So it's something to look at for your farm. If you're thinking about, wow, maybe I should go 20-inch rows instead of the 30-inch rows that I'm at, and maybe I should plant a little higher population, you better be stepping up the fertility as well, or you're going to run into some issues.
Yep, so I again think that's one of the biggest keys when it comes to this whole standability issue. You've got to make sure you're at least replacing what you've removed from the ground even if you just take the grain off. Well, it is really important to have good fertility out there, but another thing that may be kind of important with standability is having great weed control. We'll tell you how to stop our Weed of the Week coming up later in the show.